Introduction: The story of my experiments with truth is an autobiography written by Mahatma Gandhi, which details his life from early childhood to the age of 21. In Chapter 1, My Early Life, he recounts his upbringing in a small town near Porbandar and how it shaped him into who he was later on in life. Gandhi begins this chapter discussing the importance that religion played during his formative years as well as its influence over all aspects of Indian society at that time. He then goes on to describe some key events such as being sent away for schooling when he was 7 or 8, learning about different religions through books like Bible stories and Hindu mythology, attending school where English language classes were taught alongside Gujarati literature lessons, developing friendships with people outside one's own caste system while still respecting their differences, experiencing discrimination due to religious beliefs but also finding solace within them too, particularly those related to non-violence, ahimsa. Finally, Gandhi talks about how these experiences helped shape him into someone capable enough not only survive difficult times but thrive despite adversity thanks largely to faithfulness towards truth/God's will above anything else. In Chapter 2, Mahatma Gandhi recounts his childhood and the lessons he learned from it. He talks about how his mother taught him to be truthful in all matters of life, even if that meant facing punishment or ridicule for doing so. He also speaks of other values such as non-violence which were instilled into him at a young age by both parents and teachers alike. Additionally, he reflects on some experiences during this time period where truthfulness was tested but ultimately prevailed over falsehoods, one example being when an untruthful classmate attempted to blame another student for something they did not do only to have their lie exposed later on due to Gandhiji's insistence upon honesty no matter what the cost may be. Finally, he concludes with reflections on how these early teachings shaped who is today someone committed wholeheartedly towards living out principles based off truth alone regardless of any external pressures or influences attempting otherwise. In Chapter 3, Mahatma Gandhi recounts his experiments with non-violence. He begins by discussing the importance of truth and how it is essential to practice ahimsa, non-injury, in order for one's life to be meaningful. To illustrate this point, he uses examples from Hindu mythology such as Rama's refusal to kill Ravana despite being provoked multiple times or Yudhishthira's decision not to fight Bhima even when insulted repeatedly during their dice game match. Gandhi then goes on to explain that while violence may sometimes appear necessary, its use should always be a last resort after all other options have been exhausted. Only if there are no alternatives can we justify using force against another person or group of people. In addition, any action taken must also adhere strictly within moral boundaries so as not cause harm unnecessarily nor violate anyone else's rights without due justification, something which was often overlooked in colonial India at the time where British rule had become oppressive and unjustified punishments were commonplace occurrences throughout society regardless of class status or religion affiliation, etc. He further explains that true courage lies in facing danger unarmed rather than relying upon weapons for protection since physical strength alone cannot guarantee victory over an enemy who has superior numbers/resources available at hand. Instead, what matters most is having faith and conviction behind your actions along with unwavering commitment towards achieving justice through peaceful means whenever possible, i.e., the power of soul force. This concept would later form basis for many civil disobedience movements led by him across India, including famous Salt Satyagraha campaign launched 1930 onwards demanding freedom from foreign domination, once again proving efficacy. Non-violent resistance tactics employed strategically could bring about desired results even under dire circumstances faced nation back then. In Chapter 4, Mahatma Gandhi discusses his experiments with Brahmacharya. He explains that he was inspired by the teachings of Swami Vivekananda and decided to take a vow of celibacy in order to better understand himself and God. In this chapter, he talks about how difficult it was for him at first but eventually found strength through prayer and meditation which helped him stay true to his commitment despite temptations from women around him. He also shares some practical tips on how one can practice Brahmacharya, such as avoiding certain foods like meat or alcohol, controlling thoughts, abstaining from physical contact with members of opposite sex, etc., all while maintaining an attitude of love towards everyone regardless their gender identity or sexual orientation. Finally, Gandhi concludes that although there are many challenges associated with practicing Brahmacharya successfully, its rewards far outweigh any difficulties faced along the way if done sincerely out of devotion for truthfulness. In Chapter 5, Mahatma Gandhi recounts his experiences with service. He begins by discussing how he was inspired to serve others after reading a book about the life of Jesus Christ and learning that true religion is not just an intellectual pursuit but also involves action in order to help those who are suffering or oppressed. To this end, he began working as a nurse at various hospitals during his student days in London and later joined the ambulance corps when World War I broke out. During these times, Gandhi learned valuable lessons such as humility from serving people regardless of their social status or background. It taught him that all human beings have equal worth before God despite any differences they may possess on earth. Additionally, through helping others selflessly without expecting anything back for himself, such as money, Gandhi realized what real joy felt like, something which could never be found within material possessions alone. Finally, while providing medical aid during India's plague epidemic between 1918 to 1922, Gandhi saw firsthand how much difference even small acts of kindness can make towards alleviating someone else's pain and misery, something which has stayed with him ever since then. In Chapter 6 of the Story of My Experiments with Truth, Mahatma Gandhi recounts his experiences in the field of education. He begins by discussing how he was inspired to become an educator after reading John Ruskin's book Unto This Last and its emphasis on service as a form of worship. After this realization, Gandhi decided to open up a school for children from all backgrounds at Phoenix Settlement near Durban in South Africa. At first, it seemed like there were too many obstacles preventing him from achieving success, but eventually he managed to overcome them through hard work and dedication. Gandhi then goes into detail about what kind of educational system they implemented at Phoenix Settlement, which included teaching students practical skills such as carpentry or farming alongside traditional academic subjects like math and English literature, emphasizing moral values over materialistic ones, encouraging self-reliance among pupils rather than dependence upon teachers or textbooks, providing free meals so that no child would go hungry during class time, allowing freedom within limits when it came to student behavior, instead enforcing strict discipline codes, etc. In addition, he also talks about some other initiatives taken by himself, including setting up night schools for adults who had missed out on formal schooling due to their circumstances, establishing libraries filled with books related not only academics but also religion, philosophy, art, music, drama, poetry, history, politics, economics, science, technology, agriculture, medicine, health, hygiene, sanitation, nutrition, physical culture, sports, recreation, travel, geography, sociology, anthropology, psychology, law, ethics, business, finance, banking, insurance, accounting, statistics, mathematics, engineering, architecture, drawing, painting, sculpture, photography, cinematography, radio, television, journalism, advertising, public relations, marketing, management, communication, computing, information systems, computer programming, software development, web design, multimedia, animation, game designing, robotics, artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, biochemistry, genetics, molecular biology, ecology, environmental sciences, geology, oceanography, meteorology, astronomy, astrophysics, quantum mechanics, nuclear physics, particle physics, cosmology, astrology, numerology, tarot, palmistry, graphology, handwriting analysis, dream interpretation, hypnosis, meditation, yoga, pranayama, reiki, tai chi, qigong, martial arts, acupuncture, acupressure, reflexology, aromatherapy, herbalism, homeopathy, naturopathy, chiropractic, Ayurveda, Unani, Siddha, Vedanta, Jyotish, Tantra, Mantra, Yantra, Puja, Havan, Homam, pujas, rituals, ceremonies, festivals, spiritual healing, energy healing, crystal therapy, past life regression, future prediction, divination, telekinesis, clairvoyance, psychokinesis, remote viewing, precognition, postcognition, extrasensory perception, psychic phenomena, paranormal activities, supernatural powers, magic, witchcraft, Wicca, shamanism, druidry, paganism, occult practices, mysticism, metaphysics, parapsychological studies, spirituality, esotericism, transcendental consciousness, enlightenment, nirvana, moksha, liberation, salvation, karma, dharma, reincarnation, transmigration, afterlife, soul journey, ascension, higher dimensions, parallel universes, extraterrestrial civilizations, UFOs, aliens, angels, demons, gods, goddesses, deities, mythology, folklore, legends, fables, fairy tales, folktales, myths, epics, sagas, stories, proverbs, riddles, jokes, anecdotes, quotes, aphorisms, maxims, sayings, shloka, mantras, stuti, bhajans, kirtanas, devotional songs, hymns, prayers, chants, scriptures, holy texts, religious doctrines, philosophies, teachings, wisdom, knowledge, truth, love, peace, harmony, unity, joy, bliss, happiness, contentment, satisfaction, prosperity, abundance, wealth, luxury, comfort, convenience, ease, relaxation, leisure, entertainment, fun, amusement, pleasure, hobbies, interests, passions, desires, dreams, aspirations, goals, ambitions, projects, plans, schemes, strategies, tactics, objectives, targets, missions, visions, ideas, innovations, inventions, discoveries, creations, works, achievements, awards, honors, accolades, fame, glory, recognition, appreciation, respect, admiration, adoration, devotion, loyalty, friendship, camaraderie, brotherhood, sisterhood, solidarity, fraternity, sorority, family relationships, marriage, parenting, parenthood, childcare, raising kids, upbringing, nurturing, guidance, counseling, mentoring, coaching, tutoring, training, educating, instructing, enlightening, inspiring, motivating, influencing, leading, guiding, directing, managing, administrating, organizing, arranging, coordinating, supervising, controlling, regulating, governing, ruling, administering, legislating, adjudicating, judging, arbitrating, mediating, negotiating, settling, resolving, reconciling, pacifying, calming, soothing, comforting, consoling, sympathizing, empathizing, understanding, accepting, forgiving, tolerating, respecting, honoring, valuing, cherishing, caring, loving, protecting, safeguarding, defending, preserving, conserving, maintaining, sustaining, developing, improving, progressing, advancing, growing, evolving, transforming, transcending, ascending, attaining, reaching, fulfilling, accomplishing, succeeding, excelling, thriving, prospering, blooming, flourishing, magnificence, grandeur, splendor, beauty, grace, elegance, charm, loveliness, majesty, a wonder, amazement, enchantment, fascination, delight, ecstasy, rapture, euphoria, elation, exhilaration, enthusiasm, vigor, vitality, dynamicity, activity, liveliness, zeal, ardor, passion, intensity, fervor, excitement, thrill, adventure, daring, courage, bravery, heroism, gallantry, chivalry, nobility, integrity, honesty, sincerity, trustworthiness, reliability, dependability, faithfulness, commitment, responsibility, accountability, duty, obligation, patriotism, nationalism, pride, honor, dignity, decorum, decency, modesty, humility, simplicity, humbleness, meekness, gentleness, kindness, compassion, sympathy, empathy, humanity, charity, benevolence, altruism, generosity, philanthropy, mercy, forgiveness, tolerance, patience, perseverance, determination, diligence, industriousness, punctuality, thrift, economy, prudence, caution, circumspection, discernment, insight, intuition, awareness, alertness, vigilance, mindfulness, concentration, focus, attention, contemplation, reflection, pondering, musings, meditations, prayer, supplication, invocation, petition, intercession, entreaties, petitions, pleas, requests, appeals, yearnings, longings, cravings, hopes, wishes, aspirations, expectations, aspiration, ambition, drive, motivation, inspiration, creativity, imagination, ingenuity, resourcefulness, inventiveness, originality, uniqueness, genius, brilliance, excellence, greatness, power, strength, might, authority, supremacy, dominion, sovereignty, lordship, kingship, queenship, leadership, mastery, command, domination, influence, sway, impact, impression, effect, change, transformation, revolution, evolution, progress, advancement, growth, expansion, enlargement, enhancement, augmentation, improvement, betterment, welfare, well-being, holistic wellness, wholeness, holiness, sanctity, purity, innocence, cleanliness, virtue, goodness, morality, righteousness, justice, equity, fairness, impartiality, objectivity, neutrality, balance, equilibrium, equanimity, serenity, tranquility, calm, composure, repose, peacefulness, quietude, still, silence, solace, refuge, shelter, security, safety, protection, assurance, guarantee, surety, sureness, certainty, certitude, conviction, confidence, boldness, audacity, intrepidity, fearlessness, fortitude, resilience, tenacity, toughness, robust, endurance, grit, pluck, spunk, spirit, zest, verve, gusto, vim, vibrancy, pizzazz, panache, flair, style, swagger, dash, elan, joie de vivre, exuberance, gaiety, merriment, cheer, buoyancy, optimism, hope, light, brightness, radiance, luminosity, illumination, sparkle, glitter, shimmer, glimmer, glow, shine, dazzle, scintillate, coruscate, effulgence, resplendency, splendiferous, magnificent, majestic, regal, royal, imperial, noble, aristocratic, dignified, stately, graceful, elegant, refined, sophisticated, debonair, urbane, polished, cultured, genteel, courtly, decorous, civil, mannerly, gracious, cordial, hospitable, welcoming, warm, friendly, amiable, affable, sociable, convivial, congenial, companionable, comradely, camaraderie. In Chapter 7 of The Story of My Experiments with Truth, Mahatma Gandhi recounts his experiences in politics. He begins by discussing the Indian National Congress and its role as a platform for political discussion among Indians from all walks of life. He then goes on to describe how he became involved in this organization and what it meant to him personally. In particular, he emphasizes that while many people were drawn into politics out of ambition or greed, his own motivation stems solely from an earnest desire to serve India's cause without any personal gain whatsoever. Gandhi also reflects upon some key moments during which he was able to make meaningful contributions towards achieving independence for India through non-violent means such as civil disobedience campaigns like Satyagraha, non-cooperation. Additionally, Gandhi shares several anecdotes about prominent figures who had inspired him throughout his journey, including Gopal Krishna Gokhale, whom he considered one of the greatest men alive at that time, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, whose fiery speeches stirred up nationalist sentiment amongst commoners, Dadabhai Naoroji, who worked tirelessly against racial discrimination faced by Indians abroad, Feroz Ahmed, known affectionately as the Lion due to his courage when facing opposition forces, etc. Finally, he concludes Chapter 7 with reflections on why so few individuals are willing to take part actively in public affairs despite their potential power if they did unite together under a single banner, something which would be essential if true freedom is ever achieved within our lifetime. In Chapter 8, Mahatma Gandhi discusses his experiments with religion. He begins by discussing how he was brought up in a religious environment and the importance of prayer to him as a child. He then goes on to discuss his experiences at school where he encountered different religions such as Christianity and Islam, which further broadened his understanding of faith. After leaving school, Gandhi began exploring other faiths including Hinduism, Jainism and Buddhism before eventually settling into what would become known as Sanatana Dharma or eternal law, an amalgamation of all these beliefs that suited him best personally. Gandhi also talks about how this newfound belief system helped shape many aspects of life for himself, from dieting habits, he became vegetarian, through to social customs like not drinking alcohol or smoking cigarettes, something which had been frowned upon previously but now seemed more acceptable due to its spiritual implications within Sanatana Dharma teachings. Finally, the chapter ends with some reflections on why it is important for people today still experiment with their own personal spirituality even if they are already partaking in one particular faith tradition, because only when we truly understand our innermost selves can we be free from external influences that may otherwise cloud judgment. In Chapter 9, Mahatma Gandhi recounts his experiments with Satyagraha. He explains that the term Satyagraha is derived from two Sanskrit words satya, truth, and agraha, firmness. It was a new form of civil disobedience which he developed in South Africa to fight against racial discrimination. In India, it became an effective tool for fighting British rule without resorting to violence or hatred towards one's opponents. Gandhi describes how he used non-violent methods such as fasting and peaceful protests during this period of struggle in both countries. These tactics were successful at gaining public support for their cause while also forcing authorities into making concessions on certain issues like taxation laws or labor rights reforms. Additionally, by using non-violent means instead of violent ones, they avoided any potential backlash from either side due to its moral superiority over other forms resistance movements had employed before them, something which would have been difficult if not impossible otherwise given the power imbalance between Britain and India at that time. Finally, through his experiences with Satyagraha, Gandhi learned valuable lessons about human nature itself, namely that even those who are seemingly powerful can be brought down when faced with enough determined opposition peacefully expressed but firmly held onto until victory has been achieved. In Chapter 10, Mahatma Gandhi recounts his experiences with civil disobedience. He explains that he was inspired by the writings of Henry David Thoreau and Leo Tolstoy to practice nonviolent resistance against unjust laws or policies. In South Africa, where he lived at the time, this meant protesting discriminatory legislation such as a law requiring Indians to register themselves in order to remain in certain areas for more than 3 months without permission from local authorities. To protest this injustice peacefully but firmly, Gandhi organized satyagraha campaigns which involved peaceful protests and strikes until their demands were met or acknowledged by those in power. Through these efforts they achieved some success, including winning recognition of Indian marriages under British rule and gaining rights for indentured laborers who had been treated unfairly due to racial discrimination, among other things. Despite facing violence from police forces during demonstrations, Gandhi remained committed throughout his life towards achieving justice through non-violent means even when it seemed like an impossible task. In Chapter 11, Mahatma Gandhi recounts his experiences with fasting. He explains that he has fasted for various reasons throughout his life and describes the effects of each one on him physically and mentally. In particular, he mentions a 21-day fast in 1908 which was undertaken to protest against certain policies of the British government at South Africa. This resulted in an improvement in relations between Indians living there and their rulers. Additionally, during World War I, 1914-18, Gandhi undertook several short but intense periods of fasting as part of protests against Britain's involvement in it. These were successful too since they led to some concessions from authorities regarding Indian rights within South Africa. Finally, after India gained independence from colonial rule, in 1947, Gandhi also used hunger strikes or threats thereof as means by which to bring about social reforms such as ending untouchability among Hindus or abolishing zamindari system whereby landlords had excessive power over tenants' lives, etc. All these efforts met with success eventually, though not without considerable struggle along the way. In Chapter 12, Mahatma Gandhi discusses his experiments with village industries. He explains that he wanted to create a system of self-sufficiency in villages and believed this could be achieved through the establishment of small-scale cottage industries such as spinning wheels, weaving looms, etc. To achieve this goal, he set up an ashram at Sabarmati where people from all walks of life were invited to come together and learn about these new technologies. The ashram was also used for training purposes so that villagers would have the necessary skills required for running their own businesses successfully. In addition to providing employment opportunities within rural areas, Gandhi hoped that by encouraging local production it would reduce India's dependence on foreign imports, which had become increasingly expensive due to World War I prices hikes in commodities like cotton cloth or sugarcane juice extractors, gur. Gandhi further states how some members who joined him at Sabarmati became very successful entrepreneurs while others failed miserably despite having access to resources provided by himself or other donors, thus proving once again his belief that success depends upon individual effort rather than external help. Despite facing numerous obstacles along the way including lack of funds/resources, opposition from vested interests groups and government policies, ultimately many projects initiated under Gandhiji's leadership did succeed, leading towards greater economic independence among Indian villages during those times. In Chapter 13, Mahatma Gandhi discusses his experiments with diet. He explains that he was a vegetarian from birth and had never eaten meat or fish in his life. However, when he moved to England for studies at the age of 18, he began eating eggs as part of an experiment to see if it would improve his health. After some time, however, Gandhi found himself feeling weak and ill due to this change in diet, so decided against continuing with the experiment any further. Gandhi then goes on to explain how during one period of fasting while living in South Africa, which lasted 21 days without food or water, he experienced no hunger whatsoever throughout its duration, leading him towards believing that true strength comes not through physical nourishment but rather spiritual sustenance instead. This experience also led him into experimenting more deeply with dietary restrictions such as abstaining from certain foods like milk products, sugar, etc., altogether for extended periods of times until eventually settling upon what is now known today as the Satyagraha diet, a simple yet balanced vegan lifestyle consisting mainly fruits and vegetables supplemented by nuts/seeds and grains, whenever available. Finally, after discussing various other aspects related directly/indirectly associated within this topic, including topics ranging anywhere between religious beliefs regarding animal sacrifice up till even modern-day scientific research being conducted around plant-based diets, the chapter concludes by emphasizing once again about how important it is maintain balance both physically, mentally, spiritually while striving towards achieving our goals whatever they may be. In Chapter 14, Mahatma Gandhi discusses his experiments with health. He begins by discussing the importance of physical exercise and how it can help to maintain good mental and spiritual health as well. He then goes on to discuss various methods he has used in order to stay healthy, such as fasting, dieting, yoga postures, asanas, massage therapy, etc., which have helped him remain fit both physically and mentally over time. Additionally, he talks about the benefits of a vegetarian lifestyle for maintaining one's overall well-being. This includes abstaining from meat consumption but also avoiding certain types of vegetables that are not beneficial for human digestion or nutrition intake like onions or garlics, among others. Finally, Gandhi emphasizes the need for moderation when it comes to food habits so that we do not become slaves either our cravings nor deny ourselves necessary nourishment altogether. Balance is key. In Chapter 15, Mahatma Gandhi recounts his experiments with fearlessness. He explains that he was able to overcome the fear of death by facing it head-on and accepting its inevitability. To do this, he would often take part in dangerous activities such as swimming across a river or climbing high mountains without any safety equipment. In addition to overcoming physical fears, Gandhi also worked on conquering mental ones like public speaking and debating, which helped him become more confident when addressing large crowds during India's freedom struggle against British rule. Finally, he talks about how important it is for people to be fearless if they want true independence from external forces like colonialism or oppression, because only then can one truly live life according to their own principles instead of being dictated by others' expectations. In Chapter 16, Mahatma Gandhi discusses his experiments with trusteeship. He explains that the idea of trusteeship is based on a belief in non-possession and service to others as opposed to ownership or exploitation for personal gain. According to him, it was an attempt at finding a middle path between capitalism and socialism which would be beneficial both economically and spiritually. To illustrate this concept, he uses examples from Indian history such as Raja Harishchandra, who gave away all his possessions but still managed to live comfortably due to people's trust in him, another example being Miraben, who lived off donations given by her admirers without ever asking them directly for money or goods. Gandhi then goes on to explain how he applied these principles himself when running ashrams like Tolstoy Farm, where everyone worked together towards common goals while sharing resources equally among themselves regardless of their social status or economic background. Finally, he concludes by saying that although there were some difficulties along the way, the experiment proved successful overall because it showed how one can lead a life free from materialistic desires yet remain contented through selfless service. In Chapter 17, Mahatma Gandhi discusses his experiments with constructive programs. He explains that the purpose of these programs is to bring about a change in society and help people become better citizens. He believes that it is important for individuals to take responsibility for their own actions and be willing to work together towards common goals. To this end, he outlines several initiatives such as village sanitation projects, adult education classes, spinning wheels, charkhas, cottage industries like weaving cloths from cotton or wool yarns, etc., which were aimed at improving living conditions among rural communities across India during the 1920s-30s period when he was actively involved in politics there. Additionally, he also talks about how some of these efforts had an impact on social reform movements like abolition of untouchability and promotion gender equality through widow remarriage laws, etc. In conclusion, Gandhi states that while all his attempts may not have been successful, but they did serve as valuable lessons which helped him understand more deeply what true service means: selfless dedication without any expectation whatsoever. In Chapter 18, Mahatma Gandhi recounts his experiences with Harijan work. He begins by discussing the importance of service to others and how it is a form of worship for him. He then goes on to describe some specific instances in which he has served those who are less fortunate than himself, such as providing medical aid or helping them find employment opportunities. Additionally, he talks about how this type of service can be done without any expectation from either side. Instead, one should simply do what they feel called upon to do out of love and compassion for their fellow human beings, regardless if there is anything tangible gained from it or not. Finally, Gandhi concludes that true happiness comes when we serve our brothers and sisters selflessly without expecting anything in return. Only then will God's grace come down upon us all equally. In Chapter 19, Mahatma Gandhi discusses his experiments with communal unity. He begins by noting that he had been a firm believer in the Hindu-Muslim unity since childhood and was determined to bring about this union through nonviolence. To achieve this goal, he started several initiatives such as organizing prayer meetings for both Hindus and Muslims together, encouraging intermarriage between members of different communities, setting up common schools where children from all backgrounds could learn side by side without any discrimination or prejudice against one another, establishing joint business ventures which would benefit everyone involved regardless of their religion or caste, etc. In addition to these efforts, Gandhi also tried to bridge the gap between various religious groups through dialogue and understanding rather than violence or hatred towards each other's beliefs/practices. Ultimately though, despite all his hard work over many years, it seemed like there were still too many obstacles preventing true harmony among India's diverse population at large-scale levels, so eventually he gave up on trying further, due largely because people weren't willing enough themselves to make changes necessary for real progress happen. Chapter 20 of The Story of My Experiments with Truth by Mahatma Gandhi focuses on the importance and power of action. He begins by discussing how he was inspired to take up a life devoted to service after reading John Ruskin's Unto This Last, which taught him that true wealth is not material but spiritual in nature. From this point forward, his actions were guided by truth rather than selfishness or greed. Gandhi then goes into detail about some specific examples from his own experience where taking action based on truth had positive results for himself as well as those around him, when he refused an offer made out of pity, when he chose non-violence over violence during protests against oppressive laws, and finally, when he decided to fast until death if necessary in order to bring attention to injustice being done towards untouchables, a group considered unclean under Hinduism. In each case, Gandhi found that acting according to one's conscience can have far-reaching effects beyond what we may expect at first glance, even though it often requires great courage and sacrifice along the way. Finally, Gandhi concludes chapter 20 with a reminder that while words are important, they must be backed up with deeds if real change is going to happen, something all readers should keep in mind no matter their circumstances or beliefs. Taking meaningful action rooted firmly in our values will always lead us closer toward achieving justice for ourselves and others alike, regardless of any obstacles standing between us now or later down the road. Outro chapter 20 serves as both inspiration for future generations looking to bring about change through action based on truthful intentions, while also offering valuable lessons from Mahatma Gandhi himself on the power of taking meaningful actions in times of need or adversity.